My name is Janet Monroe. I live in Worcester, Massachusetts, in a quiet, ivy-wrapped colonial-style house with black shutters and a porch swing that creaks when the wind picks up. People walk by and call it charming. They don't know the war zone it's become. By trade, I'm a corporate strategist. Sharp suits, sharper tongue, and a brain that's closed more seven-figure deals than most men can spell. I've never been the emotional type, never the damsel. But marriage can dull your instincts if you're not careful, and I've been too careful for far too long. That night, it was humid, the kind of southern humidity that wraps around your skin like a second, stickier shirt. I had just finished 12 straight hours of meetings. I poured myself a glass of Malbec, kicked off my heels, and fell asleep on the couch in my silk robe. The ceiling fan above me spun like it was chasing something. At 2:03 a.m., while I was dead asleep, Derek, my husband of 6 years, slid my handbag off the side table like a snake moving through tall grass. I know this now because of the footage from the hidden camera in the living room, one of 3 I had installed a year ago. Quietly, after noticing little things vanish, a missing bracelet, a misplaced bank statement, his fake innocence when I asked about them. He slipped into the shadows of the hallway and did what he does best, take what isn't his. When I woke up the next morning, I felt it before I knew it. A kind of bone-deep chill. I reached for my phone. 36 push notifications. My eyes blurred for a second before I saw the numbers. $4,800 at Louis Vuitton Beverly Hills. $12,300 at Chanel in New York. $26,000 first class Emirates to Milan. $18,500 at a hotel in Venice. $8,000 at a luxury watch boutique in Rome. All within 6 hours. $70,000 gone. I stared at the screen so long my fingers went numb. My platinum Amex had been scorched like it had been dipped in fire. I sprinted to the bedroom, expecting maybe a note, a lie, a phone call. Nothing. His closet was half empty. No suitcases. No Derek, just that cheap cologne he wore to seem expensive. I should have cried. I didn't. My hands didn't shake. Instead, I felt something deep and electric settle inside my chest. A low, growing rage. Not the hot, messy kind. The cold, exact kind. The kind of anger that waits, watches, calculates. What Derek didn't know, and what made me smile for the first time that morning, was that the card he used wasn't my real credit card. It was a dummy account tied to an LLC I set up for bait purposes. The real card, the one with the trust fund, the investments, the real money, hadn't been touched. Years ago, I caught him snooping through my files. Not outright stealing, just curious, like a man testing a locked door. So I built the perfect trap. A card in my name but tied to an account that I used only to track and test. I called it Project Judas, and Judas just bit the apple. For a week, I heard nothing. Radio silence. He didn't respond to texts, emails, or the one voice message I left asking if he was alive. I wasn't worried. If anything, I was curious how long he'd keep up the fantasy. 7 days later, he returned. It was 10 p.m. I was on the porch with a whiskey neat and a Glock under the cushion. Because I didn't trust him not to come back with more than bags, the headlights swept across the yard. A black Escalade, rented, clearly, pulled into the driveway like it belonged there. Out stepped Derek. He was tanned. Like offensively tanned. Hair slicked back like a discount movie villain. Wearing a white linen shirt unbuttoned to the navel and designer loafers that screamed desperation. Behind him, 2 Gucci suitcases rolled across the gravel like obedient pets. He strutted up the porch steps with all the grace of a man who thought he was untouchable. "Miss me?"
he said, and then with a smug, shit-eating grin. "Thanks for the upgrade, babe."
He tossed a gold-plated lighter onto the table beside my drink like it was some kind of trophy. Probably engraved with his initials. I didn't even look at it. Instead, I burst out laughing, not a nervous giggle. A real, belly-deep laugh that made him blink in confusion. Because that was the moment I knew I had him. "Oh, Derek," I said, sipping my drink. "You sweet, stupid man." His brow furrowed. "What's so funny?" "The card," I said, standing slowly. "The one you maxed out?" "It's not my real card." He blinked. "That account's not even connected to my credit profile." It's a limited dummy trust I use to track theft, so thank you. Not just for confirming everything I suspected, but for making it so damn easy to prove. The color drained from his face, but I wasn't finished. I've already reported the charges, every one of them, to the bank. To the FBI, you committed federal wire fraud. You stole from a business account tied to a government consulting firm. Now he paled. Oh, and one more thing, I said, stepping closer. Smile. Click. I took a photo of him with his smug little bags right there on the porch. The timestamp would match his return to the scene of the crime. Proof of possession. Case closed. Pack light, I added. You're gonna need your hands free where you're going. I didn't hit him. I didn't scream. I didn't set fire to his clothes or slash his tires. That would have been too easy. Revenge isn't about chaos. It's about control. And at that moment, I owned every piece of the board. I didn't confront him right away. That would have been too easy, and far too brief. No, I wanted the pain to last. I wanted Derek to feel the panic of a man standing on a trap door he never saw coming. So I played the perfect wife. Every morning, I brewed his espresso the way he liked it. Single shot splash of oat milk, cinnamon on top, and placed it beside his morning newspaper. I kissed him on the cheek before he left for his pathetic job at the architectural firm where he hadn't designed a thing in 3 years. And when he strolled into the kitchen wearing a Rolex Daytona, I knew he hadn't earned. I didn't say a word. I picked it up in Rome, he said, twisting his wrist to catch the light. Limited edition. Only cost 30 grand. Good taste never goes out of style. I smiled, nodding, even complimented him on his new Italian leather loafers, the ones I saw on the Amex charge list from Milan. But it wasn't until that Sunday morning, while he was sipping his drink and casually checking his phone, that he slipped up. He was talking about the networking events in Europe, name-dropping people he thought I didn't know or care about until he mentioned her. It's funny, he said, scrolling through his camera roll. Valentina said the same thing about the markets over there. Then he froze. I lifted my eyes from the crossword puzzle and tilted my head. Valentina? He flinched, the subtlest twitch of the neck. That was all I needed. He tried to cover it with a chuckle. Business contact. Gallery curator or something. We bumped into her at a rooftop bar in Florence, harmless. Sure, sounds cultured, I said, and let the subject die like it didn't matter. But it mattered. Oh, it mattered more than he could imagine. That night, while he snored beside me like the guiltless animal he was, I stared at the ceiling fan and imagined pulling the chain until the whole thing came crashing down. But violence is loud. I prefer something ... quieter. By Tuesday, I'd made my first move. I called Rachel Coates, a Manhattan-trained attorney now based in Worcester, a divorce lawyer known for turning marital betrayal into courtroom bloodbaths. When I explained the situation, she didn't even blink. 70 grand in fraud, emotional abandonment, international infidelity? Janet, honey, this won't even be a challenge. This'll be art. We met at her office the next morning. She wore a red power suit and stilettos that clicked across the marble floors like gunfire. I brought everything, the receipts, the photos, the card reports, the flight logs. The best part? I had footage of him stealing the card, crystal clear timestamp, 1080p quality. That's better than a confession, she said, flipping through the evidence like it was a menu. You want asset seizure? You'll get it. You want house retention, spousal compensation, emotional damages? I nodded. I want him dismantled. Slowly. She smiled, scribbling on a legal pad. Then let's begin. But I wasn't done. While Rachel handled the legal groundwork, I was orchestrating something far sweeter. If Derek wanted to taste Europe, I'd give him a meal he'd never forget. I booked a flight, first class Worcester to Florence, with a 3-night stay at Villa San Michele, nestled in the Tuscan hills, where rooms start at $4,000 a night. I didn't hesitate. I used my real card this time, not the decoy. I wanted every charge to feel like an investment in justice. By the following week, I told Derek I needed a reset. Told him therapy was making me face my own faults, and that I wanted to reconnect with myself. His ego, bloated and greedy, didn't question it. If anything, he was glad to have me gone. You should go, he said, patting my hand like I was his troubled little wife. Take a break. Italy's good for the soul. The irony was divine. While I packed a sleek black suitcase full of neutrals and cold ambition, I pulled out my burner phone, the one I used when I didn't want anything traceable. From that, I reached out to a contact I hadn't spoken to in years, Luca Romano. A former private investigator I'd hired years ago when a client suspected her husband of cheating on corporate retreats. "Ciao, Janet," he said, his voice like gravel and espresso. "Still hunting liars?" "Always," I replied. "But this one's personal." I sent him everything I had on Valentina, her full name, the gallery's address, photos from Derek's phone I'd secretly airdropped. I told him I'd be landing in Florence in 2 days and needed eyes on her until I arrived. "No problem," he said. "I'll keep her warm." I landed in Italy with one goal: burn what he built, not with fire, but with truth. If Valentina was part of Derek's world now, she was stepping into a war zone wearing glass heels. The plan was simple: infiltrate, extract, destroy. And when I touched down in Florence, with the sun painting the city in amber and the Arno River glowing like liquid gold, I felt something I hadn't felt in months: power. This wasn't just revenge, this was reclamation. My name, my money, my sanity, all stolen, mocked, humiliated. Now it was my turn. As the car sped toward the villa, I watched the cypress trees blur past the window. Each one felt like a countdown. Derek had no idea what was coming, but he'd learned soon enough. Florence in spring is seductive. The air smells of ancient stone and blooming jasmine. Street musicians hum arias in alleyways. Couples hold hands along the Arno like they believe in forever. It's a beautiful lie of a city, fitting really. I didn't come for the art or the romance. I came to set fire to a fantasy, to burn the foundation of Derek's affair, his Europe-flavored delusion. I didn't pack a guidebook. I packed a list. The St. Regis Florence welcomed me like royalty. My suite overlooked the river, framed with gold moldings and thick velvet drapes. The sheets smelled like lavender and something sweeter, maybe vengeance. I didn't bother unpacking. I was too wired for that. I opened the balcony doors, let the breeze wash over me, and smiled at the city that had no idea what I was about to do. First order of business: find Valentina. I didn't waste time. With Luca Romano's help, my gravel-voiced contact with a Rolodex of sins, I was pointed to a sleek all-glass gallery called Valentina Fiori Arte Moderna, nestled near Piazza Santa Croce. It was everything I expected: modern, overpriced, and drenched in fake sophistication. The place was a shrine to her ego. Abstract canvases smeared with rust tones and emotionless brushstrokes. None of it made sense. None of it needed to. Rich tourists don't buy art. They buy the illusion of culture. And thanks to Derek's stolen money, Valentina had crafted a very convincing illusion. She appeared like a movie character: sharp cheekbones, draped in a navy silk dress, and a voice like honey laced with arsenic. "Buongiorno," she said, smiling wide. "You're American?" I returned the smile. "Yes, Janet Monroe. I'm an investor looking to diversify into European galleries. Your work, it speaks." She blushed. People always do when they think they're being admired. What she didn't realize was I had already mapped out every square foot of her life: her apartment in San Frediano, her lease contract paid up through December with $42,000 USD wired from a shared account labeled Monroe Design and Property. Her dinner reservations with Derek at La Giostra, the hotel receipts under his name, but with her initials scrawled in the notes section. She welcomed me like I was her next opportunity. I let her. I walked the gallery with feigned awe, asked shallow questions, nodded like an idiot. Then I bought one of her paintings, a swirling mess of crimson and navy that looked like a crime scene under a microscope. $5,000, a minor investment for major returns. That night she invited me to her rooftop dinner party. "Just a few collectors," she said. I accepted naturally. I wore black silk, not to blend in but to dominate. She greeted me with a kiss on both cheeks and poured me a glass of Chianti that probably cost more than my first car. The others at the table, 2 British brokers, a French gallery manager, and some American tech investor who clearly had more money than sense, barely registered. I had eyes only for her. And she, I noticed, didn't stop talking about her Derek. My partner, he's American like you, she gushed. He's very ambitious. Ambitious? I nearly choked on my wine. She told stories: Florence, Venice, Rome, spa retreats, and vision meetings for a future gallery in New York. He's designing it himself, she said, sipping her wine.
He says America needs more emotion in its architecture.
Too much glass, not enough soul. I wanted to drag her off that rooftop by the throat. But I didn't. I smiled sweetly and said, he sounds like a dream. Over the next 4 days, I bled her dry, not physically, but socially, emotionally, professionally. I made myself indispensable. I bought 2 more paintings, introduced her to a fake American financier friend of mine, and whispered ideas about a future exhibit in Miami. She showed me everything. Her email threads with Derek, her blueprint mock-ups for the Manhattan Gallery. Even photos of the 2 of them in a Roman bathtub drinking champagne. I memorized every detail, every stupid pet name. Tesoro, Ailri, my architect of dreams. Dreams are delicate things. It was the 4th night when I struck. She invited me over for a quiet girls' night. Wine, cheese, candles. We sat on her terrace overlooking the city as the bells of Santa Maria del Fiore echoed through the air. She handed me her phone to show me a hilarious meme Derek had sent her, some inside joke about upgrading wives. And just like that, I had what I needed, her passcode. She left to refill the wine, and I scrolled fast, like a predator. Found his contact, found his messages. And then I did something I had waited weeks to do. I sent myself everything: screenshots, videos, audio notes. There was even a short clip of Derek calling me a cold calculator who never really loved anyone. Oh, Derek. I deleted the sent items and returned her phone before she came back. She had no idea. She sat down, handed me another glass, and said, "You know, I think I'm in love." "I think you are too," I replied, watching the flicker of candlelight dance across her lying face. I left her that night with a kiss and a smile. Back in my hotel room, I opened the files and began assembling my masterpiece. Rachel had already filed the early divorce papers back home, but now I had the nuclear option: proof of the affair, the theft, the fraud, and interstate deceit. He hadn't just betrayed me. He'd done it across borders. The next morning, I checked out of the St. Regis, shipped the painting back to my office, and called Luca to transfer the footage. Everything was in place. And Derek? He had no idea the foundation under him was already crumbling. I returned to Worcester 3 weeks later, not broken, not bitter, but reborn. My heels clicked against the airport tile like a warning. I wore black, sleek, sharp, tailored. Power clung to me like perfume. I wasn't the same woman who boarded that plane. Italy didn't heal me. Italy sharpened me. The Uber dropped me off just before sunset. The colonial house stood just where I left it, proud and still, draped in Spanish moss like a funeral veil. But it wasn't mourning. It was waiting, just like me. And there he was. Derek sprawled on the porch like a rotting king, sipping bourbon from my favorite crystal glass, barefoot, shirt half-buttoned like he belonged to a damn cologne ad. He looked up, saw me, and had the audacity to grin. "What did you buy this time?"
He asked, swirling the drink. Another revenge trip?
I didn't speak. I reached into my tote and handed him a thick manila envelope, unmarked, heavy, and final.
He opened it lazily, expecting some passive-aggressive souvenir. What he got was a gut punch.
Inside were the divorce filings already in process. Attached to the top was a restraining order. And below that, a neat stapled stack of printed screenshots, bank transfers, email threads with Valentina. Photos of them wrapped around each other in Rome, voice messages of him whispering lies in 2 languages. And a payment receipt for her gallery launch, pulled from our joint account without my knowledge. Derek stared at the papers like they were written in fire. "You," he started. I held up a hand. "No, you don't speak now. You had your time."
He stood, knocking the bourbon over. "You don't get to do this."
"You think this makes you powerful?" I stepped forward until we were inches apart. "No, winning made me powerful. This is just the part where you finally learn what it feels like to lose." He reached for the envelope again, like he hadn't just been handed a noose. I snatched it from his hand and plucked out one more page, the piece de resistance. A letter from Rachel Coates stating the lawsuit we were filing for wire fraud, financial abuse and marital asset theft with estimated damages, seeking a $650,000 settlement. By the way, I added, sliding it in front of him like a playing card, Valentina knows who I am now. I stopped by her gallery. Bought one of her little blood-smeared finger paintings.
His eyes went wide. You?
Oh yes, we had drinks. I even gave her some business advice. Turns out she thought you were a venture capitalist. Told her you were just a washed-up contractor with a fake Rolex and my stolen credit card. She dumped you 3 days ago. Luca confirmed it. She moved your emails to spam. He opened his mouth. Don't bother denying it. I sent her the files.
He sank back into the chair like gravity had doubled.
His bourbon glass was on its side, leaking down the porch boards. I stared at it, then at him, and felt nothing, not pity, not rage. Victory is sterile when it's perfect. I turned without another word and walked into the house. The locks had already been changed. Rachel filed for an emergency court order allowing me temporary sole residency. Derek had no legal right to enter anymore. I'd timed it perfectly, my return aligned with the signature from the judge. Every photo of us had been taken down. I boxed them before I left. Burned them in Valentina's gallery receipt that night in Florence. I kept one frame empty, though. I liked the symbolism. I lit a candle. Poured myself a glass of wine, not the one Derek liked, but the kind I always preferred and pretended not to. Then I sat down at the new desk I had moved into the sunroom. Above it hung one thing. Valentina's painting. The crimson and navy chaos I bought for $5,000, now framed, centered, and mounted like a trophy. I didn't care that it was ugly. It was a relic of war. A personal declaration. The consulting firm I'd quietly launched while in Florence was already thriving. I called it Monroe Strategic and I ran it with ice in my veins. 3 clients signed before I even landed back in the States. One of them? A friend of Valentina's who saw my profile on LinkedIn and said she liked my fire. You can't make that up. The next day, I filed notice of Derek's fraudulent purchases with every credit bureau. I froze his ability to open new accounts, and with Rachel's help, notified every financial institution we'd ever used. His credit score plummeted faster than his dignity. By the end of the week, the sheriff hand-delivered the court notice to him on the porch. I watched from the window with my coffee in hand. He didn't fight it, he didn't cry. He just shrunk. The neighbors stopped waving to him. Word travels fast in Worcester. Especially when your soon-to-be ex-wife makes a generous donation to the local historic society and gets invited to every garden party for the next 6 months. I kept moving. Sold his golf clubs, donated his suits. Took the Porsche he loved more than me and had it deep cleaned, detailed, and retitled in my name. Then I sold it for $140,000 to a hedge fund manager passing through town. When Derek tried to call 4 times, I blocked the number. I kept one voicemail though. He left it drunk, slurring something about how he never meant to hurt me. I listen to it sometimes when I need a laugh. Every morning I wake up, stretch in my California king bed, alone, peaceful, powerful, and sip espresso from the kitchen he used to claim was his zone. I've repainted the walls, restyled the furniture, burned the old energy out of every corner. The house is mine now, and so is the life. I don't think about Derek anymore. But sometimes, when the sun hits Valentina's painting just right, it bleeds across the wall like a scarlet reminder. I didn't just survive. I conquered. So yes, Derek. Thanks for the upgrade.